Today we'll be discussing the issue of deforestation within the Amazon rainforest, the roots of deforestation within history, the primary causes of deforestation, the effect of Amazon's deforestation on animals and global warming, the current regulations on the lumber industry within Brazil, and possible solutions to address the issue. 9/10 of the world's deforestation occurred before 1950. Only during the mid-20th century did this age-old process accelerate. In comparison with previous ages, deforestation now affects more sensitive environments, causing irreversible damage. In the past, humans chopped down trees for the pursuit of shelter, food, and warmth. Timber is used to build their homes, forestry was cleared for domestic agriculture, and lumber heated their homes. 2,500 years of Neolithic society from 4,500 to 2000 BC practiced sedentary agriculture, clearing their edges for cultivation. 90% of the continental United States' indigenous forests were removed before the year 1600. As time passed, villages developed into metropolitan cities. Industrialization within countries like Britain only began to use coal as fuel after their supply of forest wood had been completely decimated. In past centuries, with smaller and more moderate populations, woodland was able to recover. The introduction of Iron Age accelerated the loss of timber as factories required large amounts of wood to power high-temperature furnaces. The current rate is unsustainable. It can only lead to the complete eradication of the remaining forest territory we have.
There are many factors to consider when evaluating the source of deforestation. The industries primarily responsible are those involved with agriculture and cattle raising, urbanization, road construction, industrial logging, mining, oil exploitation, and the construction of oil and gas pipelines. The greatest reasons for the loss of forests within the Amazon basin would be for the use of industrial logging and the construction of oil and gas pipelines. These industries practice the routine destruction of the environments of local fauna, as well as reducing biodiversity and survivability of plants endemic to the area. Logging is the process in which trees are cut to produce lumber-related products including fuel, paper, furniture, and construction. When large machinery needs to get through the forest to access trees and transport them, they tear down everything in their path, constructing roads for accessibility. Logging provides the world's wood and paper products, and to feed the demand, they cut millions of trees every year.
Forests are extremely important to the world's biodiversity. Forests house 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity. Rainforests alone house 50% of the world's animal species. Deforestation leads to a loss of habitat for each one of the species found in forests. It removes all the trees and vegetation found in an area and thus reduces the amount of food, shelter, and breeding habitat for the native species. Most of these species are specially adapted to their environment and will not survive outside of said environment. Deforestation severely reduces the chances of survival for the species found in these areas. The Brazilian Amazon has occurred a large extinction death, where animals don't immediately die off, but go extinct over the course of several generations. More than 80% of the extinctions related to the Amazon's extinction debt are impeding. Species impacted include the white-cheeked spider monkey and the giant river otter. White-cheeked spider monkeys are specially adapted to get fruits from the canopy of the Amazon rainforest. Giant river otters suffer from the runoff from the growth of agriculture in territories formerly belonging to the forest. They are now listed as endangered because of deforestation from expanding farmlands and road building. Deforestation also fragments areas of forest as humans make room for urban development. This causes species to migrate between forest fragments to obtain resources they need. The result is more conflicts between humans and animals as the animals migrate from fragment to fragment. Deforestation is a massive problem because it ends up lowering the Earth's overall biodiversity. We rely heavily on Earth's biodiversity in our society, and as we decrease biodiversity by deforestation, it will result in less species to use for food, medicine, clothing, research, and more.
Deforestation is a massive problem in Brazil. Brazil houses 2/3 of the Amazon rainforest and 1/3 of the world's rainforest. Deforestation in Brazil mostly occurs on private lands where loggers pay the owners of the land to extract timber. Brazil has the Forest Code. However, that requires 80% of the privately owned lands to be covered in the forest. This code was implemented in the 1960s, but is rarely enforced due to many areas being remote and governmental corruption. Today they have the Terra Legal program, which requires any private landowner who does not have sufficient forest to cover his or her property to submit an environmental compliance plan. If they fail to do so, they will have any agricultural credits they have revoked and their products may be embargoed. In 2006, Brazil also passed the Public Forest Management Law, which gave the Ministry of the Environment and Institute of the Natural Resources the power to regulate and give the concessions regarding deforestation. Concessions are granted through a bidding process, but are only active for about 35 years and grant only 30 cubic meters of land to but deforested.
The best solution to deforestation is to prevent the clearing of trees from the environment by employing a series of rules and laws to govern the industries responsible for it. But even with that, there still isn't a guarantee that it will stop deforestation. The next solution to solving the issue of deforestation is by limiting the clearing of forests. In order to sustain our forests against deforestation, a way to combat it is to replace every tree that is cut down with a new one. This would not only allow deforestation to decrease, but it would help with the logging industry in the future. A plausible program like this would allow companies to pursue logging as long as their portion of the income was devoted to replenishing past logged territories. These conservation areas would potentially be established within past logging territories, which would allow local environments to recover completely and continue to thrive. To conclude this podcast, we ask you, the listeners, to please help end deforestation. Although profits may not be the forefront of your concerns, put aside your greed and look towards the impact you're making on the future generations of humanity.